Imagine this, a cold autumn night in Paris. The city glitters with golden light, the streets wet from an earlier drizzle, and inside a grand fashion hall, the air vibrates with anticipation. Photographers raise their cameras, flashes cut through the dimness like lightning, and the audience holds its collective breath. Then, from the shadows at the end of the runway, she appears. Tall, impossibly tall, her silhouette stretches against the spotlights like a living sculpture. Blonde hair falls in waves over her shoulders, framing a face so sharp, so haunting, it seems carved from Nordic marble. Her name is Frida Gustavsson. At only 16, she was not merely another girl in heels and couture. She looked like a figure torn out of Scandinavian mythology, as if she had stepped straight from a snow-covered forest where time stood still. Designers whispered her name backstage, editors scribbled notes frantically, and in the audience, even the most jaded fashion critics tilted their heads to watch her every move. Frida was not just walking the runway, she was rewriting it. Yet behind the glitter and applause, there was a quieter, darker undertone. Fashion history has always carried its own shadows, its dark side of fashion, one that even the legendary 90-second Supermodels had not been able to escape unscathed. For Frida Gustavsson, hailed as a potential successor to icons like Linda Evangelista or Claudia Schiffer, the dream was dazzling and dangerous. At the very moment when the world began to adore her, destiny was preparing a cruel twist. Why would someone shining so brightly suddenly vanish? What hidden storm was waiting behind the velvet curtains of glamour? Frida Gustavsson was born on the 6th of June 1993 in Stockholm, Sweden, a city of cobblestone streets, long winters, and skies often painted in shades of silver. Unlike the glamorous world she would later enter, her beginnings were modest. She came from an ordinary middle-class family with no deep ties to fashion or entertainment. Her parents valued simplicity and stability. They imagined their daughter leading a quiet life, far removed from flashing cameras and crowded runways. But from a very young age, Frida seemed different. She was taller than most children in her class, her long legs carrying her above the others. Her features were striking, a sculpted face, high cheekbones, and a pair of icy blue eyes that hinted at untold stories. Teachers often described her as reserved yet observant, a girl who absorbed everything around her with a calm intensity. This difference, however, was not always celebrated. Among her peers, her unusual height and aloof beauty sometimes made her an easy target for teasing. While other girls blended seamlessly into the background of school life, Frida often felt like an outsider, caught between admiration and alienation. At times, she longed to be invisible, to shrink into the crowd. At other times, she felt a stirring inside her, a restless energy, as if something greater was waiting for her beyond the snowy streets of her hometown. She didn't yet know what form that something would take, but there was a quiet certainty in her heart. She was not destined for an ordinary life. Somewhere out there, a stage was waiting, a world of beauty and danger intertwined. The same world that had once crowned the 90-second Supermodels and would soon expose her to the intoxicating brilliance and the hidden traps of the dark side of fashion. In 2008, when she was just 15 years old, Frida Gustavsson's life changed in a way she could never have imagined. She was wandering through a shopping mall in Stockholm with a couple of friends, laughing at something trivial, when fate intervened. A scout spotted her tall, ethereal, her golden hair catching the fluorescent lights, her ice blue eyes shining with an almost otherworldly clarity. He paused, studied her for a moment, and then approached with a simple but life-altering question. Have you ever thought about becoming a model? For a teenage girl still unsure of her body, still trying to fit into a world that had not yet learned to accept her unusual height and sharp features, the words felt both flattering and terrifying. Modeling? That was something she had only glimpsed in glossy magazines. It belonged to another universe, far from her quiet suburban existence. At home, her parents hesitated. Her mother worried endlessly about the dangers, the grueling standards, the relentless pressure, the stories of exploitation whispered about in hushed tones. Her father remained quiet, though his silence was filled with questions. Was this a dream worth chasing, or just a dangerous illusion? But Frida's resolve was clear. There was something in her, a quiet steeliness that belied her youth. She wasn't naive. She understood that the world she was about to enter was demanding, sometimes merciless. Yet she wanted to step into it. Not because she craved fame, but because something deep inside told her she belonged under those bright, punishing lights. Her first casting was a revelation. Under the stark white backdrop of a photographer's studio, she stood nervously, her heart pounding. Then the lights flared, the shutter clicked, and a strange transformation occurred. The shy, Swedish teenager disappeared. In her place stood someone else, confident, enigmatic, magnetic. The photographer muttered, almost to himself, "Perfect. Don't move. Yes, lift your chin." Exactly. In that instant, Frida knew. She had found a portal into another world, a world filled with both promise and peril, a world that had already chewed up and spit out many before her. The same world that had once celebrated the 90-second Supermodels and would now test whether she had the strength to survive the intoxicating glow and the dangerous shadows of the dark side of fashion. The fall divided by winter season of 2009 inches Paris would become etched in the history of fashion. It was the season when a young Swedish teenager, barely 16, stepped onto the runway and altered the rhythm of the room. Frida Gustavsson, with her towering height and statuesque frame, carried herself with an authority that seemed impossible for someone so young. The sound of her heels striking the wooden floor echoed like drum beats in a cathedral, commanding the attention of everyone present. Fashion editors exchanged glances, whispering among themselves, "This girl is different." It didn't take long for Frida to explode into the spotlight. That same season, she appeared in a cascade of shows: Valentino, Louis Vuitton, Chanel, Dior, Alexander McQueen. Each appearance revealed a different shade of her allure. With her 6'1" height, her legs seemed to stretch endlessly, and her icy Nordic features glowed beneath the lights. She was quickly christened the Ice Angel from the North, a model who embodied both fragility and power in a single stride. But it wasn't simply her physicality that captivated. Frida possessed an intangible quality, a kind of cinematic depth that turned every glance into a story. In front of a camera, she wasn't just posing, she was telling a tale without words. Steven Meisel, Patrick de Marchelier, and other titans of photography rushed to capture her face. Within months, she appeared on the covers of Vogue Paris, Vogue Italia, and Vogue Japan, an achievement most models could only dream of, let alone a teenager still navigating her place in the world. Each runway show became a performance, each designer finding in her a different muse. For Givenchy, she was an untouchable goddess, her gaze sharp as glass beneath clouds of stage smoke. For Valentino, she became a delicate princess, her pink lips and porcelain skin radiating innocence. With Jean-Paul Gaultier, she transformed into a warrior, fierce and magnetic, as if she had been forged in fire rather than snow. Designers were entranced. Karl Lagerfeld declared her a Nordic jewel, while Riccardo Tisci described her as the embodiment of surreal beauty, pure and dangerous at once. Dior embraced her as one of its defining faces, draping her in silk and lace as if she were a living statue of luxury. By 2010, the industry's hunger for Frida seemed insatiable. She walked more than 60 shows in a single season, a number that placed her among the most in-demand models on Earth. Her face appeared not only in high-fashion editorials but also in global campaigns for Prada, Louis Vuitton, H&M, and Marc Jacobs. Vogue crowned her the new queen of the runway. The audience, the designers, the photographers, everyone agreed a star had arrived. And yet within the applause, there was always an echo of unease. For all its beauty, the fashion industry has always been shadowed by its own contradictions, the dark side of fashion. The higher Frida climbed, the more intense the pressure became. Her height, once an advantage, now became another metric to scrutinize. Agencies demanded she remain thinner, lighter, sharper. Her meals shrank into leaves of lettuce and almonds, her rest hours into scattered fragments between flights and fittings. The endless travel Paris to Milan, New York to Tokyo, blurred into a cycle of hotel rooms, airport lounges, and unfamiliar streets. To the outside world, she seemed flawless, the perfect blonde Nordic model, the successor to the legendary 90-second Supermodels who had once ruled the runway. But behind hotel doors, exhaustion crept in like a shadow. After the bright chaos of the runway, silence pressed heavily in her room. She was still so young, yet expected to carry herself with the maturity and resilience of someone decades older. There was a paradox to Frida Gustavsson's success. On the runway, she was untouchable, an icon in the making. Offstage, she was a teenager who sometimes longed for the quiet of Stockholm, for snow falling outside her childhood window, for the comfort of anonymity. The applause of strangers could not fill the hollowness of isolation. Still, for those years between 2009 and 2013, she stood at the absolute peak of the modeling world. She was no longer just a promising newcomer. She had become a defining figure of a generation. Her stride across Paris, Milan, and New York runways left behind the resonance of someone who seemed destined to shape the future of fashion. And yet, as history has shown again and again, the industry that raises its stars to the heavens can also be the one to extinguish them. For Frida, the signs of strain were beginning to show. The facade of perfection was cracking, though very few were willing to notice. Beneath the shimmering couture gowns, beneath the applause and the flashes, a storm was silently gathering. In an industry where beauty often becomes a cage, Frida Gustavsson chose to step outside the bars. While many of her peers clung desperately to the cycle of fashion weeks, starving themselves to fit into sample sizes and signing every lucrative contract offered, Frida began to chart a different course. She spoke openly, something rarely done in the fashion world, about the suffocating pressure to remain unnaturally thin. She once admitted in an interview, "They always wanted me smaller, but I couldn't spend my life hungry and afraid." These words were like a quiet thunderclap across the fashion landscape. Few models dared to speak so directly, fearing the wrath of designers, agencies, and editors. But Frida was fearless. She refused runway jobs that demanded extreme weight loss, even when they promised extraordinary paychecks. She rejected campaigns that conflicted with her values. This defiance was risky. Many insiders whispered that she was sabotaging her own career, throwing away the chance to join the pantheon of the 90-second supermodels she had once been compared to. Yet others applauded her bravery, calling her a warrior against the tyranny of beauty standards. She became more than just another tall blonde model. She became a symbol, someone who carried the voice of countless young women crushed by expectations of perfection. Her choices redefined her public image. Frida was no longer simply a vision on the runway, but a woman who reminded the world that there is strength in saying no. She proved that true beauty lies not only in the symmetry of a face or the length of a silhouette, but in the courage to protect one's identity even if it means walking away from the intoxicating glow and stepping out of the dark side of fashion. The fashion world is built on illusions, shimmering lights, flawless images, and the idea that beauty can be perfected. For a while, Frida Gustavsson seemed to embody that illusion with effortless grace. But beneath the polished surface, a different story was unfolding, one that echoed the haunting patterns of the dark side of fashion. After conquering the world's most coveted runways between 2009 and 2013, Frida began to feel the weight of her success crushing down on her shoulders. The demands grew harsher with every season. Designers and agents insisted she lose more weight, as if her already statuesque frame could be carved down to an even sharper silhouette. Meals became negotiations with herself. A handful of almonds here, a leaf of lettuce there, gallons of water to suppress the hunger that gnawed at her insides. Each time she looked in the mirror, she felt a war between her true self and the industry's ideal. The physical toll was undeniable. The long hours in stilettos wreaked havoc on her knees and spine. She would often limp back to her hotel room, remove the heavy couture gowns, and collapse on the bed in exhaustion. There were nights when she fainted backstage, her body simply unable to keep up with the punishing rhythm. Still, the cameras never caught the weakness. What the world saw was only the poised, almost otherworldly figure gliding down the runway. But perhaps the greater burden was emotional. Frida was only in her late teens, yet already the subject of scrutiny more intense than most people endure in a lifetime. Every flaw, every perceived imperfection was magnified under the relentless gaze of the industry. "You're beautiful, but..." Those words became a constant refrain in her ears. Too tall, too thin, not thin enough, too young, too old. The contradictions were maddening. Loneliness gnawed at her in ways she couldn't describe. She had grown up in Stockholm, surrounded by the comfort of family, the stillness of Scandinavian winters, the laughter of childhood friends. Now she found herself in anonymous hotel rooms, thousands of miles from home, staring at ceilings while the city outside pulsed with life she couldn't join. She once confessed, "There were nights when I wished I could trade the applause for silence, the spotlight for the sound of snow falling outside my window." By 2015, at the height of her fame, Frida made a decision that stunned everyone. She announced she was stepping away from modeling to pursue acting. The industry was bewildered. How could someone who had walked for Dior, Chanel, Valentino, and Alexander McQueen, someone tipped to inherit the throne, once occupied by the 90s Supermodels, simply walk away? Rumors spread quickly. Some journalists speculated she had been fired for refusing to conform. Others whispered of secret breakdowns, of hidden illnesses. The fashion press, ever hungry for drama, framed her departure as a collapse, another casualty of the dark side of fashion. Headlines asked, was Frida Gustavsson too fragile for the runway? Or the ice angel who melted away? Yet Frida herself remained calm in interviews. "I felt like I was living someone else's life," she explained softly. "Modeling gave me everything, but it also took so much. I wanted to find a place where I could be myself, not just a mannequin for someone else's dream." Her disappearance from the catwalk wasn't a scandal in the traditional sense, it was a quiet rebellion. Unlike some who fell prey to destructive habits, Frida chose withdrawal over destruction. She returned to Sweden, surrounded herself with family, and began the slow, uncertain journey into acting. She accepted small roles at first, working on local projects before stepping into international productions. Audiences saw her again in the Netflix series The Witcher, not as a model, but as a fierce sorceress on screen. For her fans, it was bittersweet. They longed to see her dominate the runways again, to feel that electricity when her impossibly long legs crossed the stage. But there was also admiration. Admiration for a woman who valued her mental health and personal happiness above the fleeting promises of fame. Still, the silence of her absence was deafening. Fashion has little patience for pauses. New faces quickly filled the gap, younger models eager to take her place. Editors who once hailed her as the next great star now spoke of her in the past tense, as though she were already part of history. And in a way, she was another brilliant figure who had slipped into the shadows, reminding the world that beauty often comes with a cost. Frida Gustavsson's fall was not a scandalous implosion, but a quiet fade-out, a choice to vanish before the industry consumed her entirely. A decision that shocked some, inspired others, and left a lingering question in the air. In a world that worships perfection, is it possible for someone to step away without being forgotten? Today, When people hear the name Frida Gustavsson, they remember the tall Scandinavian beauty with eyes as blue as frozen lakes and features as sharp as a sculptor's blade. Though she never fully ascended to the global throne once reserved for the 90-second supermodels, her presence left a mark that refuses to fade. She was a promise, a vision of what the future of fashion could have been: icy, ethereal, and hauntingly modern. But Frida's legacy is not simply about appearances. What makes her unforgettable is the choice she made at the height of her success. In an era when many models surrendered themselves to the merciless machinery of the industry, she chose to step back, to reject the idea that her worth depended on starvation or that her identity could be reduced to numbers on a measuring tape. In doing so, she exposed yet another fracture in the glossy facade of an industry still haunted by the dark side of fashion. As she reinvented herself on screen, she carried with her the lessons of the runway. In her acting roles, whether portraying a warrior queen or a tragic heroine, Frida brought the same intensity that once electrified audiences in Paris and Milan. She proved that resilience can be as magnetic as beauty, and that walking away does not mean surrendering. Sometimes it means reclaiming your life. Perhaps Frida Gustavsson never truly disappeared. Perhaps, like the stars of the 90-second Supermodels, her brilliance simply shifted form. The question remains: if she began her journey today, would the fashion world be ready not just for her beauty, but for her courage?